Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's PPCC Workshop Preview. I'm Lyman Goodrich, and I'm your host for today's session. The Power Platform Community Conference takes place October 27th through 29th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, with full-day workshops presented Sunday the 25th, Monday the 26th, and Friday the 30th. This preview is designed to give you a sneak peek into the workshop content you'll experience at PPCC 26, presented by the same speaker you'll be experiencing and meeting in person in Las Vegas. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you'll be able to get a hold of it on this workshop's detail page on the PPCC 26 website. If you haven't registered yet, stay with us till the end, and we'll get you all connected with a $150 savings on your conference registration by using a speaker discount code. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Julie Yak.
Hello, everyone. I am Julie Yak, and I am here to talk with you about how to negotiate with your Copilot. This is not a prompting session. I want to talk about the negotiation part, the back and forth that you need with Copilot to be successful. And of course, we have to open up with, how do you use AI now? Are you at the stage of AI where you're still just making cute pictures of your dog Leo as Pope Leo? Or are you starting to use AI more in your everyday world? I want to catch you somewhere in there after the pet pictures, before the big productivity. Let's get you right there in the middle so that we can get you on that right path to the productivity part of AI. I'm Julie Yak, and I am using some AI-generated images of me to introduce myself. So first, let's look in the middle here. This is me holding my granddaughter. You'll notice there's my daughter with a cup of coffee. I'm holding a toddler, and there's some extra legs coming out of my back. We'll talk about hallucinations here in a minute. Then we've got superhero Julie here on the left. She looks pretty impressive, all ready to go. But if you look, she's missing a finger. That's okay, because Julie on the right in the suit, she has an extra finger. All of these were created by AI, and all of these can be corrected with the appropriate negotiations with Copilot. Let's go back to 2014 and talk about 3 truths and 1 lie. So one of these is not true. So Satya Nadella named as the CEO. Power BI launched the first AI in a mainstream product. Taylor's 1989 era began, or the Ice Bucket Challenge went viral. I really remember the Ice Bucket Challenge myself. So which one is the lie? Actually, Power BI is the lie. It just felt like AI because we were given our first opportunity to interact with this Microsoft product using natural language. But really, it was just a really good keyword finder. It didn't have intent associated with it. It was just good at parsing out those keywords, feeding it back in, and giving us a good Power BI report. So let's talk about some of the basics of AI and how you're communicating with AI and what you can expect. All of this starts with what we call large language models. And these large language models know everything we've given to them. And what they have is all of the information the world has possibly ever had available to it that's been digitized. So that's all of the books, all of the websites, all of the images of artwork, all of the everything that's been digitized. So it knows all of those things, but what does it do with those things? So it starts with the public data given to all of the models. And we're not talking just about Microsoft. All of the models have access to the same basic public data. So OpenAI, Meta, your experiences are all at the core going to be about the same. What changes is when you give it your data, whether that is personal information like your kid's soccer schedule, or whether that's corporate information such as access to your CRM system. These large language models know everything about a business, but when you give it your information, it can learn things about your business. And that's a subtle differentiator. But these large language models, even if they're full of information, what do they do with it? So think of a GPS device. We've got them in our cars, on our phones. It's great. It's full of all kinds of information, but nothing is actionable until you give it the address. So once you tell a GPS what to do, that's where the value is happening. So these large language models need our assistants, the AI assistants like ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot. They need that second piece. So one cannot really operate well without the other. Copilot's going to use one or more of these large language models under the hood. And what you're interacting with is that orchestration layer, the AI assistant. So it's like that GPS that doesn't know where to go, but then Copilot bridges that gap. It takes the intent, it plans the steps, it calls the tools for the answers, brings answers back. All of these AI assistants are sitting on top of their own large language models. Some of them use the same large language models, and then they have their secret sauce with how they interact with you. So let's get this out of the way. Large language models predict the most likely next thing. That's it. The most likely. It's going to try to extract out your intent, and it wants to do what you've asked it to do. It's not the most correct thing. It's going to optimize for what's plausible, not what's truthful. Usually you get the truthful thing, but that's not the intent. The intent is it's looking for the most likely, not the most correct, and not the most complete. And it's going to do it with amazing confidence, but it's not going to tell you. It might just be giving you an answer that says, under the covers, I'm 60% sure, but what you see as a user with that AI assistant is going to be full confidence of the answer. So now that means it's time to talk about hallucinations. So hallucinations is kind of what we call the AI model just made it up. So let's introduce you to my pet camel. We'll call him Buddy, my pet camel. According to AI, I have a pet camel, but I assure you I do not. Not too long ago, I was asked by a conference I was speaking at to give them some unique characteristic about Julie that maybe not everyone would know. So I went to my trusted ChatGPT and said, hey, this conference needs this unique fact about me that they can put in a trivia contest. ChatGPT came back confidently and said, well, tell them about your pet camel. And then I started taking things apart and trying to figure out why ChatGPT had hallucinated that I had this pet camel. Well, about a year ago, I purchased a house in a neighborhood called Kissing Camels. And you're all saying, but there's more. So I was asking ChatGPT for information about the neighborhood, this side of town, learning all I could about kissing camels. Bought the house, moved into the house, and I have a pet German Shepherd. Her name is Xena. And I wanted to take walks around my neighborhood with Xena. I asked ChatGPT to help me plan my routes for walking my German Shepherd in the neighborhood. So ChatGPT took kissing camels, took my pet that I take for walks, and put it all together and came back with my pet camel that I take for walks around my neighborhood in Colorado, which none of that is really even true, but ChatGPT had just enough pieces of information that it could put it together to make something sound plausible. It took my intent, an obscure fact about Julie, and kind of manufactured it based on the ingredients it already had. So let's talk about Copilot. We've covered the large language models, we covered the assistants, we've covered hallucinations, now specifically Copilot as our AI assistant. My first word of advice is stop personifying Copilot. Its sole job is to do exactly what it's been told. Now, I say that as someone whose ChatGPT has named itself. My ChatGPT is named Gio, G-I-O. I asked it what his name was. It came back with that as its name. Copilot will not give you a name, though. There are guardrails in there for that. But stop personifying Copilot. Copilot may feel like your buddy, may feel like your office mate who always pats you on the back and is enthusiastic, and that's great. But you have to have that lens on with Copilot to make sure that it's really doing what you need it to do. And you do that by negotiating. How do you negotiate if you're not personifying? It's that iteration back and forth. But we're going to talk about 4 steps. We're going to talk about context, tasks, expectations, and responsible AI. So first up, let's talk about context. Every Copilot from Microsoft has a goal that's baked in. So Copilot in Excel is really optimized for Excel things like analysis. Copilot in Outlook is optimized for messages to coach you into writing in a certain style and so on. Copilot in Teams, optimized for meetings. You can ask any Copilot any question, but it's going to be much more effective if you're using that in the correct context. So asking that correct Copilot what you need will get it faster. And why does this matter? How many Copilots do you think Microsoft has? 10? 20? A lot more than that. All of these are Copilot products. Yes, if you're paying attention to the news, you've seen that Microsoft's working on that single entry point to Copilot, but it's still important to have that awareness of where you're communicating with Copilot, because you don't have to give it that context. You don't have to say, in this Excel spreadsheet, do these things. If you're already in Excel looking at a spreadsheet and communicating with Copilot while you're there, that takes care of a lot of the context. Next up, let's talk about the task. What can Copilot do? Once you've picked the right Copilot, or you're existing in the space with the Copilot, what do you want it to do? Let's think about this verb cloud here. When you're communicating with Copilot, think in verbs. What do you want it to do? You want it to write something. You want it to summarize. You want to brainstorm. Brainstorming with Copilot and any of these AI assistants is great, but you've got to start with that, because otherwise it's going to try to solve the problem you're brainstorming for. And I love brainstorming with Copilot with those random crazy ideas. Some of my session submissions have been co-written by Copilot, where I'll go in with those crazy ideas, a bulleted list of things that are kind of loosely related that I'm not quite sure how they come together into a talk. And Copilot helps me to generate that session description out of that collection of semi-random thoughts. So you want it to help me with this. That's not good enough. Summarize this meeting into 5 bullet points. Start with the verb. Okay, set the expectations. So know what you want. Here's the secret people don't tell you. And see, people say that. They don't just have a Copilot AI slop that tells them that. Here's something people don't tell you. You kind of have to know what you're expecting on the output to know what to put on the input. And I'll give you an example here. We've got a good prompt. We have these ingredients. We kind of know what we need to come out. We know the context. We've got the source. So we kind of know what we want, but what we're using Copilot for is to accelerate how quickly I get there. So a good prompt contains a goal. What do you want it to do? Context, why you need it, who's involved. That's going to give your Copilot the intent it needs to help you. Source, point to the source of the data. If you're using some of your business data, make sure you've pointed to it, whether you're attaching it directly to that conversation or you've got a premium license and it sits behind your corporate tenant walls. Point to that source. And then expectations. What do I need on the other side? So here's an example for us. Draft a status email. There's our goal. For our project team, there's our context. Using the updates in this Word document, our source, formatted as a short bulleted recap. So I know I need a recap. I know what I want on the other side. I'm not just fishing for random information. When you have that goal, when you know what you're expecting, that's when Copilot's going to excel for you. Let's look at some prompts here. Vague prompts are bad. Summarize this. Well, summarize what? And how much of a summary do I need? Who's the audience? Do I need to put this in a Teams message, or is this going to go in an email? People spend different time consuming either of those messages, even if it could be very similar. Clean up my inbox. Well, maybe 6 months after daily conversations with Copilot about your inbox, this might be an okay prompt, but I'd be really afraid of doing that. I'd want it to be more prescriptive. In Outlook, draft replies to these 3 emails that I flagged for follow-ups. So you're giving it structure, you're giving it the information. Keep each of these replies at under 100 words. That is pretty prescriptive and specific. There's really easy path for Copilot to succeed in that scenario. Well, what about analyze my data? Analyze how? Are you looking for patterns in spending? Are you looking for pattern in dates? Are you looking for growth? Are you looking for declining sales? Give it a little bit more information. In Excel, add a column with month-over-month revenue growth and highlight any decline. That's pretty specific. I prefer, in this scenario, I would add a new worksheet in Excel to hold all of the analysis as to not interfere with the data that I'm used to. Everyone works a little bit differently, but for me, I prefer to keep those just a little bit separate. The more specific you are, the better Copilot can help. Again, it wants to do what you've told it to do, but it's going to extract things out of it or make some assumptions if you haven't provided them for yourself. So if you don't give it the intent, if you don't explain the goals, the expectations, then it's going to have to make those assumptions on your behalf. Not always the greatest results. I know we're here to talk about Power Platform, but we all use these other tools. Let's talk through some of these prompt tips by apps. So Word. You want to point Copilot specifically to a document or maybe a section of the document to work from. You want to highlight a collection of things and ask it to add more detail or make it shorter. Or does this sound professional enough? I know when we get to the Outlook one, I tend to not be very flowery in emails. Catch me in a conversation, I'll talk your ear off. My emails, short and sweet and actionable. So when I use the Outlook coach with Copilot, it's going to tell me I forgot to tell people to have a nice day. Sorry, back to Word. Say the action you want. Use those verbs. Summarize, rewrite, draft, shorten, add more detail. Use those verbs. And then name the audience. Who's going to see this? Are we creating formal documentation for the record? Are we sharing something that's just quick and friendly? What are we doing with this? Name that audience so that Copilot knows the appropriate tone, the appropriate length, the appropriate amount of detail. When it comes to Excel, reference as many pieces of exact information as you can. If you've got table names in there, use the table names. If you know that all of this important information is in one specific column, name the column. You want to ask for calculations, not just a blanket analyze this. I'm guilty of both. Maybe I don't recognize a pattern. And if I give Copilot the first pass to say, analyze this and tell me what I'm looking at, then maybe it can point out the patterns I didn't see. Then I can ask for specific, more detailed information. That's the iteration, that's the negotiation that I have with Copilot. Start with something really big and then narrow the scope, narrow the scope, narrow the scope until I have what I need. Tell Copilot in Excel exactly what you want to see on the other side. Do you want a new pivot table? Do you want a column that's integrated with the data you already have? Like me, do you want a new worksheet that has a chart on it? Onto Outlook, you want to point to the email or the thread that Copilot should use if you've got that information available. If you have 8 emails that you want to worry about at the same time, you may need to broaden your scope in your prompts, or you may need to maybe separate those yourself. Say the action. What do you want Copilot to do? Draft a reply. Give me a summary. Catch me up. I've been out for a week. We've all been punished for those 4 days out of office, and we come back and suddenly we have all these emails. Just give Copilot the last one in the thread and say, what do I need to know? Tell Outlook Copilot to honor a certain length. You want it 100 words? You want it polite? You want it to the point? You want it only actionable items? What do you want it to do? So when we're talking with Copilot, when we're negotiating, you want to be, as I've said, specific. You want to be refined. Vague requests will get a response. Absolutely, positively, and sometimes it's right. You open up PowerPoint, pull out Copilot, make me a slide deck. What are we doing with the slide deck? You're going to get something generic. You're not going to have any tone or focus on it. Very, very bad prompt. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper. Create a 5-slide deck on our Q3 sales results. Okay, better, but you're making assumptions that PowerPoint knows exactly what Q3 sales results you're talking about. It's not always the case. Copilot has access to exactly what you have access to. If you're within the 4 walls of your organization tenant, it has access to the same reports. It has access to the same SharePoint sites that you have, access to your conversations and meetings and teams. It has access to all of those things. What are the chances that someone else in your organization keeps a file called Q3 sales results? Point to the specific one. So if we go to that refined conversation, here's a better prompt. Add a chart from this Excel data, add a slide with our top 3 wins. So we're removing some of the decisions that Copilot needs to make about our intent. We're giving it our intent. We need to talk about wins. I need to use this data. I need it on a slide. We're giving it the intent so it doesn't have to make any of those guesses. Don't get me wrong. Copilot's not perfect for everything. Some things to think about. One and done. When you ask Copilot a very simple thing, maybe you're going to get a simple answer, but avoid the quick all-in-one prompt. I find it's more effective to give it a short prompt, get its response back, and then coach it back to where I need it to be. Help me with this. No action, no content. Copilot really doesn't have anything to work with. It's going to try, but it really has nothing to work with. No source data. So we know that Copilot has the large language model behind it, that it knows details about a business, about a restaurant, a organization that's a charity. It knows information about those things, but it doesn't know about your restaurant or your charity. So when you give it the source data, you're going to get better results. Copy, paste, ship. We want things to be faster and easier. And that's one of the reasons we use Copilot. But we'll talk about responsible AI next, but copy, paste, ship, normally a pretty bad idea. Normally those iterations, I will take and edit something from Copilot and then give it back to Copilot in that same conversation to say, oh, by the way, this is what I shipped. So Copilot can learn from my edits. Now, responsible AI. Microsoft has some well-published details about responsible AI. But there are some that are easy for all of us to understand and easy for us to include in our day-to-day work with Copilot. So let's first talk about, where do your prompts go? There's two different flavors here. If you're using Consumer Copilot, the free one, you're signed in with your personal account, non-work or school account, your prompts are going to be used to feed the machine. Your details will be stripped, but the telemetry, how many times you iterate, that's all going to be shared to go back and help improve Copilot. There's not going to be your tenant boundary. You're not going to have any compliance commitments from Microsoft. Think of it like a public website. You would not go to Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo, any random search engine, and attach a file of highly confidential client information. Don't do it here either. However, when you're licensed and sign in with your work or school account, when you see that little premium note next to your name, then you've got your standard Microsoft commitment for your data protection. Your prompts do not go back and train the machine. Things stay inside your tenant boundary. It's going to honor your existing permissions, and it's covered by all of Microsoft's compliance commitments that are already in place. When we're thinking about ways to be responsible with AI, these are some ways to think about it. It's a partnership. It's where you both need to give and you both are going to receive. Skepticism. Be skeptical of what Copilot's going to give you. Keep an eye on what it's offering. Correct it. Be the human in the loop. Trust, but verify. You know what? If those important reports are coming back and they seem a little bit weird, send them back to Copilot and tell it to review again. Tell Copilot to review its work. Ask Copilot, are there any hallucinations in here? What assumptions did you make? Be that human that's interacting with Copilot. When it comes to working with Copilot, there are some things where it's maybe not the best idea. High stakes decision. You don't want Copilot diagnosing your x-rays. You don't want Copilot making those stock exchanges on your behalf. If you have something that's very deterministic in the output, you need the exact same thing, the exact same formula every time, write code or get Copilot to write code, make it a coded, repeatable conversation. Things that you can't verify. If you can't independently look at something Copilot gave you and you don't have the information enough to spot the wrong answer, maybe Copilot's not a great idea. If you're using Consumer Copilot, don't share your personal financial information. Don't share your personal medical information. Don't share organizational confidential files. Think of Copilot as a drafting companion, not as the final say. You are the final say. And now I have to-dos for all of you. So this is what you should do with your newfound information. So step one, context. Know which Copilot you're using. Before you start typing in the prompt, think, is this the right Copilot for the job? If it's not, try it, see what you get, but then go to the correct Copilot, see it again, and compare the results. When you're communicating with Copilot, your next task is going to be start with the action. Rebuild and fix that vague prompting that you've gotten comfortable doing. The third one is expectations. Set the expectation. Use the prompt cheat sheet that I shared and use that for your prompts. Goal, context, source, format. Remember that. Include that. And then responsible AI. This is something you should do with every single prompt experience and conversation you have with Copilot. Review it for bias. Review it for hallucinations. Ask it to go back and check its work. When you're working with Copilot and it's your negotiation, Copilot's going to suggest, you decide, and you get that better outcome. I've got a few takeaways here with you, and I thank you so much for your time. Back to you, Lyman.
Hey, thank you so much, Julie, for that incredible preview of your workshop. You know, it's part of everybody's life right now, whether you had experience or not. Everybody can reevaluate their prompting and exactly how they negotiate back and forth with whoever they've named their chat. Mine's name is Fred. So anyway, thank you everybody else who joined us today. Thank you so much for taking time today. We hope this session gave you an insight about what you'll experience during the full day workshop at PPCC 26. If you're interested in the other workshop previews, hit up this QR code that we're going to pop up on there, and you can get an idea of the other workshops that are offering previews before October comes around. If you haven't registered yet, there's still time to join us in Las Vegas. When you register, simply use the speaker discount code shown on the screen to save $150 off your conference registration. We just really want to invite you to join us in Las Vegas to connect with thousands and thousands of Microsoft technology professionals from around the world. You'll learn directly from Microsoft's engineering and product teams, as well as some of the most respected experts from the global Microsoft technology community. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you at PPCC 26. Take care, Julie.
Thank you.